Hey guys, we're going to get started. We want to thank you all so much for coming out here, especially on a Monday night. We were absolutely thrilled to have Gabino Iglesias here for The Devil Takes You Home. I'm personally so excited for this book because pretty much every horror author that I love and admire is just raving about how incredible this book is, just how gritty it is, how riveting, how moving. And I think he's just one of the next great voices that we're going to be seeing for a long time. But even before this, he did Zero Saints and Coyote songs, which got a lot of critical acclaim. The New York Times just did an incredible write-up on this book. And so we just want to give Gabino a big welcome and thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you for coming out or for watching, wherever. Oh, there it is. You're watching. And to all of those horror authors who are talking about the book, your check is in the mail. I'm excited to be out here. It's been a really awesome tour. Been having a lot of fun talking to people. Writing is a solitary endeavor. But getting out there, actually meeting librarians and booksellers, that's one of the best things that you can do. And in 14 years, I never had an opportunity to do that, so I'm having an absolute blast doing it now. And also talking to people. This isn't Twitter or Facebook, so it feels better to, hug friends from the online world. Some of you have never seen before. Some of you haven't seen in ages. I saw in Denver not long ago, although I've lost all track of time. Chris Reich was supposed to be here with me, and about a half an hour ago I received an email from him. He sadly tested positive for COVID, which is bad news. He's not doing too bad because I guess if you can still email and you don't know you have it, you're not dying from it. But it was a good reminder that the thing's not over yet. People are still falling like flies from COVID. But half of this thing I've done by myself, and the other half with co-presenters, interviewers, whatever you want to call it. So I've been collecting stories because when they hand you a microphone, you don't want to talk about the book for 30 minutes straight. So you talk about stuff around the book. And some stories are funny and some stories are sad. And I like the funny ones. So if you have your book with you, you can turn to the back of the book and you will see that there is a blurb from the amazing Du, who is an absolute legend. And I like to tell the story of that blurb. When Josh acquired this for Mulholland, we were talking and I realized it was going to be very easy for us to find a bunch of straight white dudes to blurb me. I didn't want that. And that's how, David Heska and Stephen Graham Jones and Tananarive Du and Sean Cosby ended up in the back of that book. So we came up with a fantastic list of writers of color that I admired. And Tananarive, as a legend, I was like, there's no way in hell she's going to say yes. But she said yes. And so we sent her the cleanest, most awesome PDF that we had. And 3 weeks go by. And I'm at the supermarket. Setting up the story for those at home, too. I'm at the supermarket, and I get a notification, and I pull out my phone. And you shouldn't do that in the supermarket because you're in the middle. People are trying to do things. It's an email. And I open up my email. It's an email from Tananarive. And I go like, all right. And I open it, and it says, Gabino, I wanted to let you know how much your book sucked. And then this lady bumps into me from behind, and I'm like, oh, crap. I feel my heart in my shoes. And so I put my phone away, and I take my little cart, and I go over to a little corner, and I'm like, well, I'm talking to myself. This is something that happens. Sometimes people will love your book. It's good practice. Sometimes people will hate it. We had some folks that we reached out to for blurbs that didn't even reply into the email. It's part of the gig. Toughen up. Read the whole email and reply kindly. thank her for her time, and then you can go home and cry in the shower in a fetal position. So I take out my phone, open up the email again. There's a thing that we should all be aware of as writers, which is line breaks. So I read the email and it says, Gabino, I wanted to let you know how much your book sucked. And then on the second line, it says, sucked me in from the start. And so my heart came right back up from the bottom of my shoes. And I was very, very happy because the legend, Tananarive Du, had enjoyed my book and she was going to give me a blurb. So there's a message to this story. Read the whole damn email before you make any assumptions. I've been doing very, very, very short readings because people have the book, hopefully, and they can read the book themselves. So I'm going to turn to page, I think it's 103. Yeah, here it is. And this is a part that I've been reading because I love being on the road. I love driving everywhere. I drove from Austin to Louisiana to Oxford, Mississippi. Did an event with William Boyle at Off Square Books. And then the next day, I drove 11 and a half hours from Oxford back to Austin. So I've been reading this chunk, which starts in page 102, and it says, long drives had their own language, their own rhythm, their own reality. They always triggered memories for me. I drove a lot while at the insurance place. They sent me to money laundering trainings in Orlando, Biloxi, Santa Fe, Baton Rouge, Oxford, Dallas, and other cities. I always drove. It kept me out of the office longer and was more fun. I loved being home, but also loved being behind the wheel, music blasting. I loved stopping in places where the history of this country, past, present, and future, converges in a succession of abandoned houses full of secrets, dilapidated cemeteries, boarded up stores, shitty diners, and gritty gas stations in the middle of nowhere. I lived for glimpses of towns past their expiration date, where cracks, ghosts, and memories outnumber residents. That's the real America. The soul of this country lives in the gap-toothed smile of gas station cashiers, the matted fur of small-town dogs, the buzzing of neon signs in small dives where a layer of dust covers every surface, the shattered spirit of drive-thru employees in nowhere towns, the weird smells and carpet stains in cheap motels where the windows look out at empty parking lots. I enjoyed stopping at gas stations that had machines in the bathroom that offer off-brand cologne for $0.25 and wondering what chemicals galloped in the veins of the wild-eyed truckers passing through. I loved nameless diners and waffle houses with dirty cutlery, where the server has a gold tooth that outshined most people's souls. When we drive, things that were tangled in our heads begin to detangle or to be revealed as inconsequential. Those drives had the power to make me feel like a lost whisper in Austin's traffic, or a bird gliding effortlessly over the Atchafalaya Basin, a fake tourist on the Biloxi coast, or a lost memory in the endless straight roads of the Florida Panhandle. Those drives also triggered memories of Puerto Rico. And I'll leave it there. You should really get the book so you can read the rest, and then I can keep going to places and talking about books. I know. I was telling stories, and then I started reading. I'm sorry for being so disorganized. I'm a writer. What can I do? I rely on panic and coffee to get through the day. I was lucky enough to do an amazing event in Washington, D.C. With the ALA, and I talked to hundreds of librarians, which is awesome. Shout out to all librarians everywhere. And I did a total of 3 signings, all right? And librarians would come up to me, and they would all say the same thing. Give me the little pitch. I left the child mutilation out of it because I thought, maybe librarians are not the child mutilating type, which if you are, no judgment. But I had a spiel that I thought made this sound like a thriller more than a horror book or a hardcore crime book. And it was awesome to see that librarians would hold the book at arm's length. And then as I spoke, they either held it in and hugged it, or right around the time where I say the little girl dies and the father is left with a lot of medical debt and has to go on a wild, illegal adventure and encounters creatures and stuff, I realized at that point they would put the book back down on the counter, put 2 fingers on top of it and slide it back. And then if I laughed, they would say something about fantasy, romance, YA, or middle grade, and those are the things that they usually read. Sadly, it made me realize that I have once again failed to write a good romance and also failed to write a believable middle grade book. So my apologies. It is what it is. I shall try again. I'm trying with the next one. It's almost done. I swear to God, I try to make it a romance. I put a little bit of love in there, and then a lot of things went south. And it's probably, and this is the part that I'm excited about turning it in, because it's, I'm not going to say it's gorier, but it's a sadder book. And a lot of people have told me that they start reading this book and they cry. So if you cried with this one, please get some Kleenex for the next one, because my whole goal was I've already tried to focus on other things, whether that was racism or the healthcare system. And with this one, I just want to hurt people. Which is not how you should approach a middle grade book anyway. But if you've read The Giving Tree, you know that book will mess you up anyway. So maybe I'm onto something and the rest of you are wrong. Yeah, librarians would either hug my book, which, lit up my heart like a neon sign, or they would slowly slide it back. So shout out to librarians everywhere and to booksellers for allowing me to do this thing. And because Chris is not here, you're going to have to fly with me on this solo mission. So if you're at home, I guess you can drop comments or questions. So they're saying yes, so go for it. And if not, for the rest of you who are here, thank you for coming out. Thank you for having me in San Diego. And I know some of you have read it already. I know most of you have not. So please, any questions, comments, concerns, or taco recipes, shoot, and we'll have a little conversation. Or not. I'll just keep talking. So the last 2 books were things that were happening while the rest of my life was happening. So I had different jobs while writing the other books. I wrote Zero Saints. I was still trying to finish my PhD dissertation. I was grading essays for Pearson at night. And it was like a weird Saturday, like a weekend warrior type of deal. I was also absolutely insane, and I was writing Hungry Darkness, which is a little book that came out through Severed Press that no one read or heard about. But I was writing 2 novellas at the same time, which was a lot of fun. If you don't enjoy sanity. So I was doing that over the weekends, and then I was teaching ESL classes to undocumented workers, which kind of influenced COYOTE songs. And I knew it had a home. It was going to be another Broken River Books release, but I didn't have a deadline. It was like, when it's done, it's done. So I had life and work and stuff that I was doing, and then I was writing. And then with this one, I had probably 35 to 40,000 words. It took me 2 years to write about 40,000 words. I was teaching a class at Southern New Hampshire University's online MFA program, and I was teaching 4 classes at a high school in Austin, which is more than a full-time job. If you're a teacher, you know what I'm saying. And then March of 2020 rolled around, you know, the dark days, the time that we don't talk about. And I was notified in March that June 1st was going to be my last day. I was being let go. So I panicked. I was like, there goes my main source of income. There goes my my health insurance. What am I going to do now? So I spent between March and the beginning of July sort of wasting my time on Indeed and online. Between March and June, the entire world, you know, went down the drain. Everything collapsed. No one was hiring. In fact, everybody was just like me. We were on the same boat. Everyone was getting fired. Everyone was getting let go. I realized I'm lucky because I don't work in the service industry, and those folks had like no inkling of what they were going to do next, because it's not like you could change restaurants. Everything was closed. And right around the beginning of July, I said, there's no reason for me to keep pummeling my mental health, trying to find a gig that's not going to show up. I'm going to write. I'm going to sit down and write. I've got no excuses. I have no trips lined up. I have nothing to do. I'm cooped up in the house, and I'm angry, and I feel very violent, and I kind of sort of afraid of not having health insurance while there's a global pandemic. And every morning I would wake up and read about man from Houston gets a $450,000, bill from the hospital for 2 weeks of COVID. And I put it all into that. And so it was a really weird, it felt like I was a full-time writer because I would wake up in the morning, take care of a couple things. I was still teaching, like, I think 1 class online, and that was it. And I was like, I'm going to do 2 things. To keep the lights on, I'm going to do a series of workshops that I taught for a whole bunch of months, and I'm going to write. And suddenly having this freedom to just sit down and write, it was glorious. So between July and Halloween, October 31st of 2020, I wrote the other, 65,000 words, which is completely weird for me. Yeah. So it didn't even feel like writing the way that I used to. This was like a thing, like I was running against, some invisible monster that was going to get me if I didn't finish it. Now that monster has a name. It's called a deadline, and it's for the next one. But yeah, things have changed yet again. So yeah, a lot of fear and a lot of anger. That's how, and a little bit of free time. That's how I wrote this one, and hopefully it shows. Yeah.
So on Twitter, online, you said you struggle with titling things. This book has a ball in it. Paint the picture, how you came across. I know it's taken from a line in the book.
Yeah.
Process.
It wasn't. I think I sent it to my agent when she wasn't my agent yet, with no title. And I said, if you love it and we end up working together, please know that I suck at titling things. So this has no title. And then I said, don't worry, I'm thinking really hard about it. And I'll send you another email. And I sent her an email with like 10 or 12 awful titles. And she was like, she's Melissa Donasco. If you hear this, she's awesome. Love her to death. And one of the reasons why I love her to death is she's very, very honest with me. And she was like, all of these suck. And I was like, I know, I told you. And then she read it. She was a senior editor for probably 10 years in New York City. And she gave it that first. edit, and she sent it to me, and then we're kind of reading the book again together, and she goes, I'm pretty sure she didn't call me a dumbass, but she kind of sent me an email saying, like, listen, dumbass, you have this line in the book. When they're sitting there, he's looking at the tattoos, and I'm like, yeah, because sometimes, just a co-pilot, but it's the devil who takes you home. And she's like, the devil takes you home. That's the title. And I was like, if it works for you, I like it. And then she put it in there and told me that when we sold the book, it might get changed. And by the time we sold the book, I was in love with the title. So I'm super happy that they didn't take it out. And it's also the longest title I've ever had, because I had Gutmouth, single word, and then Hungry Darkness, 2 words, Zero Saints, 2 words, COYOTE songs, 2 words. So this was like an upgrade for me to go from 2 to 5. Not trying to compete with Eric LaRocca or any of those folks who, title their books an entire sentence. But yeah, I like it. I'm glad it stuck. Yeah, much love to my agent. She put a title on it and sold it. So, anybody else? Yes.
All right, so this is more of a comment instead of a question, but Kim says, I'm a librarian. I loved your book.
Awesome, Kim. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Kim. This question here is, was there a supporting character that changed from initial outline to final publication?
From initial outline? I don't think so. I had the 3 of them, pretty set in my mind. I knew what I wanted to do with them. I knew that none of them were going to be good, but none of them are also going to be bad, because straight bad guys bother me and bore me, which is more important. I don't want my readers to be bored. So I don't think any of them changed a lot. They got a little bit more space because character development is a thing, and the more you read and the more time you spend with the same characters, they keep growing, and then you realize sometimes you know them so well, and then you realize you didn't put all of it in the book, so you have to do a couple more things to show the world that they were not despicable human beings, and we worked on that, but each one of them held their own space in that story from the start.
Thank you. Another one we have is, given the nature of the book, did you have to decompress after writing sessions for this story?
That's hilarious, because this is the first big book. Please let it be a big book. And no one had asked that question at any of the other events that I've done in the past 14 years. And I've always written really bad, dark, gory, sad, angry stuff. And it's like, oh, finally people care. Yes, I have to decompress. I lock myself in a tiny room. I shut the windows, and I put what my friends call my suicide music on. And it's like monsters and dark ambient sounds. And I go to places where I know what I put on the page will be raw, and then I can edit it. But in the process of digging that stuff out, I get angry, I get sad, I relieve, a whole bunch of bad stuff, and then I can't flip a switch. I know some writers who are amazing sort of performance artists, and they become a character, and then they hear, they got kids, they hear daddy from downstairs or mommy, and then they flip the switch, and then they were murdering 16 people, and then they can go downstairs and prepare snacks. I don't have that ability yet. I've never developed that ability. So I do the dark thing, and then I have to sort of try to walk out of that. So like I'll go and I'll take the dog for a walk, and then I'll look for flowers and look at the birds, or I'll call my mom, and she'll tell me a joke, and then I start dragging myself out of that space. So yeah, I have a problem flipping the switch. I was just killing folks, and now I'm in that mood. So stay out of my way while I walk the dog, because the dog also has mental problems. So it's two of us. Yeah, he's scary. He's like a 70-pound pit bull. So people don't mess with him. But yeah, we're both angry at the world. I don't try to eat birds though. Maybe it helps. I don't know. Interesting question. Yeah.
Given that, what are some of the songs on your suicide playlist? And is it a playlist you have shareable?
It's not shareable, but we can make that happen. For this one, it was a lot of William Basinski, a lot of Lost Mord, a lot of who else? Richard Rach. A lot of what else? Ali O'Day. Just really ugly. Towards the end, I discovered the account of Iron Cthulhu Apocalypse. So just the sounds of the elder gods being angry and snoring. So it's just like minimalist, no words. Lost Mort has a few words in there from time to time. Just dark, ambient. And between that, the darkness, and my own anger, it would allow me to get into that mood. But yeah, we'll do a playlist that's shareable at some point. No one likes suicide music, anyways. That's why.
This is a comment I think you would it'd help you in your moods. So Egg Shen says, looking forward to picking up my copy of The Devil Takes You Home. At San Diego Comic-Con, I saw David Balls at a panel for the new Latino comic imprint Chispa Comics. I just want to say, as a poor boy from Laredo, it's great seeing people that look like me finding success.
Awesome. And David is great. He does his big part in representation. And I think the most beautiful thing that's happening in horror and thrillers is that we're seeing Black folks, we're seeing trans folks, we're seeing Native American folks, we're seeing more women for all walks of life. We're seeing the BIPOC community come out and have the freedom to write about whatever they want and say, this is my story with my lens. And the same with the LGBTQ community. They're coming out and saying, yeah, we're not going to write the same thing over and over again. We have a unique positionality in the world. This is our lens. Here are our stories, and readers are just devouring it. So we're all happy to be seeing each other on the pages, and not just someone else writing about us because we are the other and that we should be feared. So yeah, shout out to David. Yes. Ooh, good one.
14 years or how many years?
Yeah, I'd be writing if I was forced to never publish in my life. I would have the stories in my head that have to come out or it'll explode. I teach creative writing, and I always tell my students, writing is art. Writing is like the best thing that ever happened to me. That's writing. Publishing is a business that has nothing to do with art or, the beauty of creating something. It feels amazing to have the opportunity to do this now. It kind of feels like, everything that I worked for like 14 years paid off. But at the same time, if it didn't, if we couldn't sell the novel, and I had to, publish it myself, or it ended up with another small press, I'd be happy because, first of all, small presses are the world. Small presses should be defended at all cost and protected because they are gems, and some of the most exciting work is happening in small presses and indie presses across the country. It's about writing, and then you try to do the other part because the other part allows you to do more writing and to talk more about your writing and to share your writing with more people. I talked to my editor early on when he was sending galleys to booksellers, and at one point in time he talked about like 150 galleys to different indie bookstores, which are great. Just like indie publishers, indie bookstores mean everything. Support your local indie. And then I was like, dude, you're sending out hundreds of galleys. No one's going to buy the book. So it's been a learning experience and trying to understand how different things are. I never had a galley before. I never had a book plate. I never did an event with booksellers. I never did an event with librarians before. I never had an opportunity to go on a official tour like this time. It was just like I would make money doing one thing and then invest that money because they invited me to read or talk somewhere, and then I would go to that thing. So it's a learning. I signed with my agent, and the next day was like a long phone call of, here's a lot of questions that I have, and she patiently sat there and explained a lot of things to me. And to this day, I have a very important theory. No one in publishing knows exactly what the hell's going on and what works. So I'm taking all my notes and I'm asking all my questions and taking everything with a little grain of salt. But things like, I flew here with a backpack. Back in the day, I would have to carry two because I need to bring my own books. Now, when I show up places, the book is already there, and it feels awesome. And that all belongs to the publishing part. Like, booksellers have already read it. And I'm like, booksellers are reading my book. And that means that if they like it, the magic of librarians is that they recommend books, and the magic of booksellers is that they do exactly the same thing, except people buy it instead of taking it home and then returning it. So the unknown mystical art of like hand selling, those are parts of the business that were completely invisible to me before this book. And now I'm like, all right, I have to keep working on the writing part. I have to make sure the next book is like bigger, badder, slicker, gorier, sadder, angrier, stronger. And then at the same time, I have to know exactly what I'm doing, because when I go talk to booksellers, there's things that they want to know about. I didn't know that signing books was important. I knew that I liked having signed copies, but everywhere I go, they're like, please sign our stock. So now I learned when I show up, I'm like, I will sign the whole damn store if you need me to, just to say thank you for doing what you do. So it's two things. You have to keep, if you play, professional sport, if you play basketball, they probably say you have to work on your defense and then your offense, and have both of them. So still learning. Yeah. In about a year, we can talk about, I can bring my notes and we can talk about what I've learned, if I manage to do this for another year, which is another part that's very scary. This doesn't allow you to fail. Like if you fail with one book, good luck going back to square one. So yeah. So go buy it. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I can't wait to finish the next one, turn it in, and start making, trying to make some of those ideas happen. Anthologies for me are like they're an introduction to a whole bunch of voices. And usually I love picking one up because it's like, hey, Stephen Graham Jones has a story in this. And that might be like the hook for me. And then I'll go through the table of contents and I'm like, my friend, author I like. And then I'll be like, oh, I haven't read anything from this person. I'll read that one first. They're just like this little treasure trove of new voices. They're super interesting to put together because you have an idea in your head of what the story will look like based on the theme that you're throwing out into the world. But basically what you're doing is like, here, see what you can do with this. And then the way that different authors take that idea and make it their own. I was going to say I don't mind. I did read 720 stories for the Whole Dark Holidays in about 3 weeks. I'm never doing that again. I'm pretty sure that I'm never gonna, bounce back from that. Like my eyes will never be 100% again. But I had a blast. And then it gives you the opportunity to work with as many indie publishers as I can, and they deserve all the help. And if you can put something together that they can pay authors can make a little bit of money, and then they will sell a lot of copies, and then they can keep doing what they're doing. It's awesome. So yeah, hopefully this works out, and then that'll give me a little bit more time to work on fiction, and then the time that I used to, if this is the regular day job, then the time that I used to spend on writing before will now be for like blurbs, intros, and editing other projects, because it feels like I haven't done one in a long time. So yeah, those are fun. Yes.
Hello. Any advice for aspiring writers who want to start grim stories but don't know where to start?
If you want to, you already know where to start. You have an idea, right? Write it down. It's going to suck. Don't worry. Mine suck too. Everybody in here is a writer. They all suck. You're going to suck for a very long time, and then you're going to die. But you're going to suck differently, all right? So the story that I'm telling in my next novel is a story that I started thinking about when I was about to graduate high school, and I never had the chops to tackle it until now, which means that I'm about a decade and a half behind on the stories that I want to tell. You have to wait sometimes for the practice to kick in. You start by grabbing your journal or your computer or wherever the hell you write, and sit down and write. That's it. If you want to tell stories, it's because you have stories in your head and they're aching to come out. So worry about editing later. Worry about getting them published once you have them edited. For now, sit down and tell that story. It's like it's talking to you right here. And everybody started the same way. We wanted to say something, and then we did. And the only thing between you and a finished story is you sitting down. So go for it. You're allowed to log off right now. You don't have to listen to the rest of the stuff that I have to say. Go write. Yeah.
Were there any scenes or bits of research that got cut by the final draft that you wish made it in?
Yes. Well, one, I cut myself before I turned it in. I spent 2 weeks learning how to liquefy meth. It's, in case the book didn't work out. There's a part in the book about it. And then I did the classic. I spent 2 weeks of my life researching how to liquefy meth. So there was like a little info dump in there on how you liquefy it and how you put it into tanks, and you cover it because it doesn't mix with gas. So you can unplug one of the tanks of the truck and put the liquefied meth in there and put a little bit of gas on top so it looks like gas if you open the cap, but etc. And then I was reading it and I was like, wow, I just wrote like an academic paper on how to liquefy meth, and this isn't gonna fly. so I crammed all of that into like 3 lines. And then I also became obsessed with Jesus Malverde, which is someone that y'all know here in San Diego, because I was walking around all town and I saw a couple of shirts and stuff with Malverde on them. And he's sort of like a cult figure in Mexico and other parts of the world. He's you steal from the rich to give to the poor type of elemental. And I had a whole thing where at the end of the novel they're in Juanca's house, and he has a bust with all his little ofrendas and the whole thing for Malverde. And again, I read as much as I could, and I talked to people, and I bought a couple of books, and so I became a Malverde expert. And so I was like, boom, here's another info dump on this weird cult religious figure, and it didn't make the cut. So Malverde was in the book for about, 10, 12 pages, and then that was it. They cut him out. So now I have to steal things in his name and give them away. Yeah. Oh, and there was a joke that got cut because the first time, and he doesn't mind me saying this, my editor, Josh Kendall, the first time he read the whole thing, it kind of went over his head. There's a kick-ass trans woman who works for the cartels in the book, and she goes to Mexico because our healthcare system sucks, and it's easier for her to get what she needs in Mexico, and so she pays for her transformation working for the cartels. And her name is Jessica King, and she's at a bar, and she's talking to this guy, and they call her La Reina, the queen, and she's introducing herself, and she says, my name is Jessica King. You can call me Jessie, you can call me the queen, you can call me La Reina, but my name is Jessica King. You do not call me JK. If you call me JK, I will shoot you in the face. And I think that, and they publish the lady who writes about the young wizard. So I think that joke kind of like went over his head. And at one point he said, if any of my edits, you want to push back? I'm like, hell yeah, I want to push back. We're putting the JK joke back in there. And I hope someone reads it and sends it to her. And that one made it back. It was cut originally, and now the call me JK and I'll shoot you in the face joke is back in there. So it's my little love letter to all my trans friends out there in the world. Yeah.
I love that personally. I think this is another great one, particularly since you deal with dark things. Given the seriousness of the story, what was the most fun scene to write? Sounds like you already had some fun with that scene, but
I had fun with that scene. Yeah, La Reina's a fun character just all around because it's you have to give. You don't have to. I don't want to sound like I'm making up rules. It's nice if you do the dark thing, and from time to time you give folks a little room to breathe, some kind of a little bit of humor here and there. And I really liked to write about Juanca's mom. Because I think in all crime-driven cultures, if you've read Mario Puzo's La Mama, it's one of those books that shows you in crime communities, it's all about the bad guys and the guns and the macho BS. And then it's usually the women who are in charge and the ones who make decisions and the ones who are at home organizing things and the brains behind the crime industry. And writing about her and, she knows what her son is up to, and she has already lost 2 sons to the crime world, and yet she's sweet. She's a nice old lady who prays for you, and that was fun to write about. And La Reina was my larger than life character. It was we always talk about folks from all the countries south of the border coming here, and we tend to forget that sometimes it's folks from the northern part of the border who go down there to get cheap antibiotics without a doctor intervening, or to get their cavities fixed because it's cheaper down there, or to get some other type of medical attention. And I thought she could be that really fun character with a very big gun and a very beautiful heart, who has a sense of humor about things. But yeah, when you do mutilation, you have to throw in a couple of jokes once in a while, or people just quit the book and move on to something lighter.
At what point in the drafting did you know what the last line would be? So
this is not how you should do things. For those of you who are asking about writing, sometimes I have scenes that come to me, and then I will keep them in my mind, and I know that I'm missing the connective tissue between those scenes. And I think it was halfway through when I realized what I wanted my twist to be at the end. And I kind of knew how I wanted this thing to end. And then I was looking at the religious undertones throughout the whole novel, and then I realized this has to be the end. This has to be the last word of the book, because the first word of the book is leukemia. So I have to balance things out a little bit. I can't end with like AIDS or cancer or brain tumor. I have to do something slightly more poetic. And then I had that line in my head for probably 6 months. So finishing the novel felt nice, but finally being able to get to that point and write that line felt even better. So yeah, I hope folks dig it.
Awesome. Are there any other in-person questions we have? Because otherwise I have one last question from the digital audience.
Right. So I was very lucky that my previous 2 books were published in France by Sonatine Editions. The French absolutely love American noir. And during the Trump years, there was a French magazine called America. And they were sort of a very smart cultural project trying to get the French to understand America by presenting very diverse American voices. And they had found something that I wrote many years ago about in Mexico, you can't buy guns. There's like one gun store in the entire country. It's controlled by the government. That's not where the cartels are getting their guns. The cartels are getting their guns from this side of the border. So it's usually Americans who can walk in there and, buy a couple of AK-47s and take them down to the border and make a profit. And they had me write an essay about the relationship seen from the other side of the border, which is like, you complain about drugs, but you're the ones who are shooting, smoking, snorting, and popping absolutely everything that we cook for you. You complain and make fun of Juarez and the prostitutes. They're not for us. You're the ones, jumping to this side of the border to enjoy our sex workers. And then you go back home and judge us for having this as a service to you, because you're the ones who are consuming it. And so a lot of research went into the relationship from that side. And then doing that research, I discovered that there were certain, for example, Houston PD has a gang unit. And the gang unit has their go-to individuals who basically just study gang violence. And they have most of their information online for free. And then I was also very lucky to know an individual that you probably knew, Isaac Kirkman, who in the last days of his life, he was doing water runs at the border, leaving water in gallons for folks who were crossing. But before that, he did a lot of bad things. And he'd been in the tunnels and he'd worked for the cartels. And I remember telling him about when this novel was just an idea, and he went to Austin and he spent about 4 days basically answering every single question that I had, and me taking notes and writing stuff down on my phone and trying to figure out, how can I talk about this without getting shot. So yeah, it was a very wild mix of folks who had seen it on the ground and then just research for the America magazine. Right. I love religions, and I was lucky enough to be born and raised in Puerto Rico, which is probably the center of syncretic thought and syncretism of the world. So you can live in your little neighborhood, and maybe your mom might be a Christian, but the folks next door are santeros, and then 2 doors down, there's some people who practice voodoo and santeria, Palo Mayombe, Mesa Blanca. They have like this, we have them all. So as you grow up, I moved to the U.S. in 2008, and the weird stuff for me was sort of rediscovering racism. Like I knew racism was a thing, but it wasn't a thing that I experienced daily because I spoke Spanish. I had no need. Until I was 10, I couldn't even speak English. So I didn't have that thing. Everybody was a different color. And that was the reality of life. When I moved here, suddenly being a different color or having an accent was an issue. And the same thing with religion. I was surrounded by all of those religions. I had a grandma who shows up in Zero Saints, who had like the bathroom she had a tiny apartment, and she had a bathroom for the spirits. That's where the spirits live. She had her candles. I wrote about this in the book. She had all her milagritos on her bra strap. She carried a lot of prayer cards, like laminated prayer cards for every event. If she drove past the cemetery, she had like a series of things that you had to recite in order to make sure that everybody rested peacefully over there, but also that they wouldn't try to come home with us. And then when I moved here, it was like so standardized, and all those things were quote unquote weird. And I was like, no, they're not. Have you taken a look outside of the U.S. at the plethora of religions that are practiced across the globe? And then with Zero Saints, I made the decision I'm going to start bringing all of the religions that I become obsessed with for a little while into my books. And then at the time that I wrote Zero Saints, it was Santa Muerte, because it had at the time probably 9 million folks that were practicing it across the globe. It's very visual. It's a type of religion that looks so scary and ugly from outside, because you see it's Lady Death, and it looks scary. And then you start looking into how it operates, and you go like, oh wow, not that much different from like the Virgin. And then with COYOTE songs, which has the Virgin of Guadalupe on the cover, I was obsessed with that Southern United States type of devout, the Virgin has its own space, and sure, God, Jesus, whatever, no, but the Virgin, we want to put her on shirts and hats and tattoo her on ourselves, and she's the woman in charge. And then with this one, I had between the mix of stuff and Valverde and a few other things. It was, I try to bring the same feeling that I had when I moved here, which was, it was beautiful to have that mix and to not argue about it. So maybe I could be an atheist, and we can go have a beer, and you can tell me about Santa Muerte, and I can be like, that's awesome, dude. I don't have to argue with you about religion. And then thing that I started doing a long time ago was also trying to put religion in really weird places inside every single book. And here it happens with El Milagrito. In some other books, it happens with other people, because I grew up, everyone had a religion, but in a sense, every single one of those religions were a set of guiding principles, some type of, positive thing in their lives. And then I moved here, and it was like, yeah, we got religion too. Let's pray the gay away. And I was like, wait, what? That's not, hold on. No. This is how you're supposed to use it. Love thy neighbor and all that stuff. What happened? So it's a way of putting religion in the books where it's like, you push it to a level where people have to contemplate, like, wow, we do some really horrific things. Maybe the Inquisition is not entirely over, and we're still kind of using that same frame of mind to tackle day-to-day life. So, yeah. And also, I wanted to alienate readers and get 1-star reviews, because they hate all that weird stuff. In case they didn't hate the Spanish enough, then you can hate the religion.
Last question. What do you hope readers will come away with after reading The Devil Takes You Home?
Oh, that's a good one. I like that one. Here's why. Because it's really weird. Hope. Hope. So there's a little bit of hope. It doesn't matter how dark it gets. I respect all hustles. So do whatever it takes to get you out of that situation. And I know it's a very, very dark, very, very sad and angry book. But one of the main things driving Mario throughout the entire book is hope of a better tomorrow. He knows he's not going to get his baby girl back, but there might be something better on the other side of that little mountain that he has to climb. So yeah, there's a lot of ugliness in there, but please try to remember that it's all about hope, which is a weird thing to say about a really horrific book. But yes, it's about hope.
Everyone, thank you so much. Let's give it for Gabino.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and for everyone who is watching virtually. Thank you so much. Yes, Kim, I agree. Outstanding. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream now because we're going to begin the signing portion of the in-store event. Thank you again for being here, and don't forget, if you click the link below, that'll take you to our website, and you can get at this point, signed copy of The Devil Takes You Home. Thank you so much. Bye.